Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. Fixed version, Sab Green Hojana Chahyayab. Vel would replay the memory later, after everything, and still feel his hand drift toward his sidearm, uselessly, a heartbeat too late. The training blade left Grix's hand at a speed built to open a human throat. Vel watched from the gallery, 3 floors up, and saw the woman below not flinch, not step back, not even blink, just reach up and close her fingers around a spinning edge the way someone might pluck a moth out of the air mid-flight. No blood, no scream. Just Dr. Kira Vance turning the blade once in her palm, watching Grix the way a person watches someone finally arrive at a joke's punchline. That was the second week. To make any of it make sense, Vel had to go back to the first morning. He had asked the Terran delegation for a soldier. They sent him a trauma surgeon wearing a mechanical wristwatch and an expression like she'd rather be somewhere else. His aide, Fex, had read her file aloud with the tone of a man delivering bad news he didn't understand. Emergency medicine. Field surgery. No combat commission. Vel ordered the assessment to proceed anyway, mostly to prove a point to himself. The drones came first, 3 of them, marker rounds, a protocol that clocked elite Carthan operatives at 0.4 of a second on their best day. Vance dodged the opening volley before the launch housings had finished extending. By the 6th run, her average sat under 1/10 of a second, and she was sitting cross-legged on top of one of the drones, waiting for someone to think of something harder. "Equipment fault," said Brell, the ranking assessor, and ordered it run twice more. The number didn't move an inch. Then came the gravity chamber. It climbed past the threshold that folded most species to their knees, past the mark that had ended the careers of 2 Carthan Marines Vel had personally trained. At 9 times standard, Vance finally stopped, hands braced on her knees, breathing hard, unmistakably alive. "My lower back is never forgiving you for this," she called up to the gallery, and somewhere behind Vel, the Venthal analyst Trilex made a small strangled sound, because by every law of Venthal physiology, her spine should have folded to powder 3 gravities earlier. The psychological trial should have broken her completely. The system fed her the death of her homeworld in full sensory resolution, the fire, the screaming, the particular silence that follows both. Vance watched it with the drooping patience of someone sitting through a lecture she'd already read the notes for. When the operator reported her pulse actually slowing, Vel cut the feed himself. "That wasn't even scary," she told him over the comm, sounding faintly let down. "We've got a whole genre for real nightmares. Clowns, sewers, you'd hate it." Nobody in the gallery had a follow-up. Several took notes anyway. The blade test was what undid the last of Vel's certainty, and it's the one the officers' mess would still be arguing about a year later. Grix entered carrying 2 knives and the bearing of a man performing a formality. He threw the first without warning, not a killing throw, but fast enough that any untrained being should have gone down screaming. Vance caught it by the edge, a hair's breadth from her palm, and never once looked at the blade. She looked at Grix, and smiled that smile. "Want it back?" she asked, "or should I hang on to it a while?" Grix answered by drawing 2 more. What followed wasn't a fight so much as an argument between 2 definitions of violence. Grix moved in the disciplined geometry of a soldier, 4 arms building a lattice of steel that had never once let an opponent through it. Vance simply wasn't where the lattice closed. She didn't block his strikes. She was already elsewhere by the time they landed, and every 3rd or 4th exchange, she tapped him with the flat of a blade, exactly hard enough to make her point. 2 minutes in, Grix stepped back, all 4 arms trembling. Vance hadn't broken a sweat. "You've trained," he said. It wasn't a question. "I've dissected," she said, handing the knives back hilt first. "Cadaver Lab shows you where all the doors are. Emergency medicine teaches you to move fast when somebody's trying to walk through one without asking." The live fire trial that followed, 5 combat veterans, real weapons, lethal force sanctioned, lasted 43 seconds. Vance disarmed all 5 in sequence, left no one with a lasting injury, then knelt on the arena floor treating their bruises with a medkit she'd requested beforehand, cheerfully lecturing them on stretching technique the whole time. Trilix said what Vel was already thinking. She just turned an execution into a training seminar. "Bring her up here," Vel said. "Now." Standing in the observation deck afterward, disheveled and entirely unbothered, Vance reorganized every threat assessment Vel had ever filed with a single sentence. "We don't split our people the way you do, Commander. A surgeon learns to fight because patients turn violent sometimes. A teacher learns to survive because protecting children means being dangerous when it counts." She shrugged. "You asked for one qualified human. We sent a doctor. Ask for something built to end things instead of mend them, and this conversation looks very different." Vel didn't sleep well for 3 nights after that. He got his answer when the Terran diplomatic transport docked a week later. 1 ship, 12 people, and Ambassador Marcus Webb walking off it like a man who had never once needed to prove how dangerous he was. 11 more filed out behind him, and Vel's combat instincts began sounding alarms he hadn't heard since his last live engagement. In the council chamber, Webb let Grix go first. The instructor moved through the full Carthan combat forms, forearmed precision, thousands of years of refined doctrine, genuinely beautiful to watch. The chamber applauded with real warmth. Then Webb turned to a woman who had said nothing until that moment. "Captain Yara Okonkwo," he said, "if you'd indulge us." She moved through a dozen human fighting styles, one after another, each built for a different purpose than the last. None of them built to disable. Strikes meant to crush a windpipe outright. Locks meant to snap, not restrain. A throw that would end a spine, not just a fight. Then she drew a blade, and without laying a hand on a single person in the room, made it unmistakably clear she could have ended every life present before anyone reached a weapon. 2 council members left before she finished. Nobody applauded this time. "She is not our best soldier," Webb said into the silence she left behind. "She's one of roughly 2 million humans who train to her level. We field 500 million more in active service, 2 billion in reserve, 16 billion civilians who all learn some form of this before they're old enough to vote." He let the numbers settle into the room like weight. "Dr. Vance told you the truth in that arena, Commander. If you'd asked for someone whose whole purpose was ending threats instead of treating them, you would not be looking at a doctor right now." Vel found Vance near the back of the chamber, arms folded, watching the demonstration with the same mild patience she'd shown an entire simulated apocalypse. It landed on him all at once. The Terrans hadn't sent their weakest offering first. They'd sent proof of what an unspecialized human could do, so that everyone in this room would understand exactly what a specialized one meant. The thought sat in his chest like cold water finding a crack. "Why help us at all?" he asked, "if this is what you are?" "Because we spent our whole history alone, fighting each other for lack of anyone else to fight," Vance said, before Webb could answer for her. "We nearly finished ourselves off twice overdoing it. Then we found out the galaxy was full of people just as frightened as we'd been. Turns out the least useful thing we could do with what we've got is keep it to ourselves." The council's vote came back unanimous 7 days later. The Corfax swarm reached the Carthan border 6 months ahead of every projection and found joint human-Carthan lines already dug in, already drilled, already waiting for them. The first battle lasted 3 days. It cost the colony half its outer wall and cost the swarm most of the force it sent. And when the guns finally went quiet, the humans and Carthans who were still standing did not stand apart from one another. Vel found Webb in the wreckage afterward, both of them grey with dust, the colony behind them scarred but breathing. Near the center of the ruin, Kira Vance knelt over a Carthan soldier with 3 shattered arms, a small silver device humming steady in her hand, closing torn muscle in real time under the emergency lights. 6 hours straight, Webb said, watching her. She hasn't sat down once. Vel watched the wound seal itself closed, watched the soldier's fingers twitch and then curl on command, watched Vance wipe her hands on a cloth stiff with dried blood and turn immediately to the next stretcher without a word of complaint. Grix was already crouched beside her, holding a light steady, learning the motion of her hands the way he'd once studied an enemy's footwork. "Your people fought well," Vel said finally. "So did yours," Webb's eyes stayed on the surgeon. Here's the part nobody back home fully understands about her. She isn't dangerous because she wants to be. She's dangerous because she refuses, categorically, to lose the person in front of her. Some species build their monsters to take life efficiently. We just happen to build ours to keep it, and it turns out the same hands do both, without much of a seam between them. Behind them, more stretchers came in through the smoke, human medics moving beside Carthan ones without needing to be told the rhythm. Vel watched Vance press the regenerator to a new wound and felt the device's small green light answer back, steady, unbothered, already looking past this soldier toward the next one waiting in line.